See, this is proof that I've already accomplished one thing, is I've rehabilitated the name Bernie. Really important, right? I was at a fundraiser in Toledo, and the gentleman who was gracious to have us at his home said, "Let me introduce you to the next senator from Ohio, Bernie Sanders." And I'm like, "Oh, nice." Right? Not good. But see, we got to change that trajectory. First of all, truly blessed to have all of you here. As I look around, there's so many of you that are here that supported me when I had the third place position locked up. I had it all to myself. All right, we were polling at 4, 5, 6, 8%. People thought this was a kind of an ego project that we couldn't get there. We went on the air right after issue 1. I didn't want to advertise during that time frame because I didn't want to drive the rates up on defeating issue 1. That we didn't do that. But we started advertising right after that election. Within 1 week, we tied the race. 3 weeks later, we were up 4 points. President Trump endorsed me on December 19th. We're now up 18% as of 2 weeks ago. Now, I had a reporter the other day that was interviewing me, and I say interviewing, that's a loose interpretation of the word. She was interrogating me to fill in the blanks of a story she had already written. And she said, you endorsed President Trump a year ago. And I said, that's correct. Well before I decided to run. She shook her head. And she said, and he endorsed you about 3 weeks ago. And I shook my head. And she said, well, how do we know this is not a puppet situation? So I paused, I looked at her, thought about it, and I said, you know what? I have a great relationship with President Trump, but I don't think he's going to do everything I tell him to do. The reporter looked at me and goes, I don't think that's not what I meant. I said, oh, I know what you meant. I know exactly what you meant. And you know what? What the media doesn't understand and what the left doesn't understand is why we support President Trump. We support him for the reasons that you're going to probably see later tonight, where America may end up in another entanglement with our soldiers already dying in the Middle East.
Yes. Yeah.
That would never have happened if Donald J. Trump was President of the United States today. We have an invasion of Ukraine that would have never happened if not for the weakness of Joe Biden. We have China on the edge of Taiwan that would have never happened if it weren't for the weakness of Joe Biden. I go to the grocery store and I think to myself, did I just have a really expensive vacation with my wife? And fortunately, a lot of us can laugh about that, but I've seen with my own eyes people at the cash register that are returning eggs. And instead of getting a dozen, they're getting 6. That instead of getting a loaf of bread, they're getting half a loaf of bread. Because grocery prices are killing working class Americans. I see my own son, 25 years old, trying to buy a house. You have to make $114,000 today to afford a home in Ohio. 3 years ago, that number was $60,000. And I want to talk about that for a second because I hear a lot of politicians that talk about the American dream. So let's talk about that for a second. I think there's a lot of people who think the American dream is something that maybe what I did or some others did, that they start a company, start with nothing, through hard work and dedication, you build a bigger company, and then you end up making a lot of money. But in reality, wealthy people exist everywhere on Earth. The country where I'm from, Colombia, South America, has fabulously wealthy people. So does Europe, so does Africa, by the way. That's not, to me, the American dream. To me, the American dream is this idea that you can go to high school, you can graduate, you can get married, you can start a family, you can afford a home, you can afford a car, you can send your kids to good schools that educate, not indoctrinate those kids, and you can live in a safe community. And then importantly, you can retire debt-free and enjoy a life. Now, you didn't aspire to be a multimillionaire or billionaire. You didn't start Facebook in your basement. But the reality is what I just laid out to you is the actual crux of what's different about America than any place else on earth. And as the Republican Party has refocused itself, that's the party that I want to go to Washington, D.C. and build. And if you look at what Joe Biden has done to us in the last 3 years, let's go through that backwards. You can't retire today debt-free. It's extraordinarily difficult. And you have politicians telling you, give up your Social Security, and instead we're going to send that money to foreign countries that hate us. Right? That's insane. Right? We live in Columbus, Ohio. We don't live in a third world country. But I walk around everywhere I go with a gun on my side, a gun in my car. I won't go out in the arena district past 9:30 at night. That's insane. Robbie, who works on my campaign, was telling me a story that just yesterday, he was in an extremely harrowing situation right near Cap Square. So this idea that we have safe communities, that's been taken away from us because they're vilifying the police, making the bad guys the good guys, right, and not punishing criminals. Affording a car is almost impossible today. The average car payment, when I owned 15 dealerships, everything from Volkswagen to Buick, GMC, Nissan, Kia, the average car payment was about $200 a month. The average car payment today is over $800 a month for a car. And then, by the way, try to get insurance on that thing. So car ownership is getting more and more out of reach. And they're not happy with that. They want... How many of you in this room, look around for hand raising, drive an electric vehicle as your primary vehicle? No, not boo. You can not boo. An electric car, if an electric car works for you, I think that's great. But what the federal government wants to do, what Sherrod Brown and Joe Biden want to do, is they want to force you that in 2 years, a third of you have to have an electric car. By 2032, 2/3 of you have an electric car. And by 2035, all of you have an electric car. Right? You know what built this country is the free market capitalist society. Right? I get to decide what I do with my money. Not Joe Biden and not Sherrod Brown. You know, when I had 15 dealerships selling 20,000 cars a year, I never had one client that walked into one of my dealerships and said, well, what kind of car does Sherrod Brown think I should buy? That never came up. But evidently he wants to be in that decision-making tree. Affording a home. You see the real estate market? I mean, we live in the center of this disaster right now in Columbus, where affording a home is absolutely crazy, and rent continues to escalate. My son was looking at a house, like I mentioned earlier, he's moving to Delaware County. A house that I thought maybe was probably realistically more than he should be buying, right? But, you know, he's 25. You know, dad can only give so much advice. And then he looked at the property tax bill. Next house, because that was completely outside of reach. So this basic idea of America, that you can afford a home, is going away. And you look at young people today. For those of us who are over 45, over 50, when we were 20, we never thought these basic American elements would be out of reach. And yet for too many young people, they don't see a future for themselves. That's the way the future is for us. And in terms of graduating from high school and having a good job, the left wants us to have hard-working Americans that work with their hands, that drive trucks, that put up drywall, that are plumbers, that are welders, to pay for the gender studies degree of people who spent way too much time in college. We want to forgive their debt and put it on the backs of working Americans? I say, hell no. No. Absolutely not. And who are we rewarding in that scenario? Who are we rewarding? We're rewarding the universities that have 200 plus diversity, equity, inclusion officers that do nothing all day other than create more of a race-baiting culture in this country. My youngest son, same way I'm picking on him tonight, when he went to college, 3 days before classes started for him in college, he got an email from the university that says, hey, we see that you're Hispanic. Now, by the way, didn't see that he was a great student, didn't see that he got good SAT scores, didn't see that he took good advanced placement courses. Instead said, we have special counseling and tutoring available for you. So somehow he's stupid and dumb, uneducated, incapable of doing his own work because his dad was born in South America. You tell me, who are the racists? Who are the racists? The Democrat Party and the liberals in this country have fundamentally destroyed the black community and are working to do it to the Hispanic community. And Republicans won't say that out loud because they're afraid of confronting that real fact. But one of the stories that I believe will come as a result of this election is that the black and Hispanic community is going to see the light, and we're going to see a record turnout for President Trump among blacks and Hispanics. And we're going to see this election by a landslide. Because I'll tell you right now, there's nothing wrong with my son because his dad was born in South America. There's nothing wrong with Michelle because she has different pigment than somebody else. Right? Judge us on the content of our character. So I was in Washington, D.C. for a couple days last week. And as you know, just in case you don't, let me make this clear. If I have the honor of your support, if the honor of your vote, I have pledged to serve 2 terms in Washington, D.C. and then come home. Now, Bridget's not here with me because my oldest daughter, my son-in-law, and the 2 little babies are in our home for the last month and 2 more weeks before the new house opens. So by the way, let me just say this, very happy to be here with you tonight. We're Bridget's in grandmother duty, and don't repeat, I said that to Bridget. But Bridget will say this clearly, 3rd term, 2nd wife. All right, so let me just get that out of the way. But I was in D.C. For 2 days, like I said, and you know, it breaks my heart to go there. I'll just say that to you. It really, truly breaks my heart to go to Washington, D.C. This is a great country. Somebody asked me as I was coming up here, are you tired? How many of these events do you do all day? You worn out? And the reality is I look at your faces, the energy that you give me, and I'm telling you I could go on for many, many more weeks because the reality is you are the one that inspired me. I feel an awesome responsibility to make sure I represent you. Go Bernie! But let me tell you about my trip to D.C. So I go to D.C., and one of the things that hit me like a ton of bricks was that D.C. has lost the sense of what America is about. I talked to senators, congressmen, lobbyists, all of these political people there, and they actually have given up hope. When you talk to them about, you know, what can you do when you're here? Hey, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. Oh yeah, that stuff's not going to happen. Yeah, it's never going to happen. This is it. You can't change this place. And it reminds me of my first day when I was 38 years old and I bought my first dealership. And I walked into the dealership May 12th, did the closing. Then I realized that the people who were in the showroom were the people from the people selling the dealership. And when they all left, there was nobody in the dealership. And I said to my sales team, the dealership had sold 4 cars the previous month, like 1, 2, 3, 4. I said to my sales team, which were 5 people, which opened up a whole lot of questions for me. Like, what did you guys do all month? Right? But I said to the team, I said, tomorrow morning we're going to have our first meeting. I want you to come to me with your forecast, what you think you can do. And I said, think big, like dream big, like think a big number. So I got all excited because I said, man, I really motivated them, and I'm going to have this big turnout tomorrow morning. So I sit with them, and they each go through this thing that's absolutely beaming with pride. The forecast added up to 12 cars. Let me just say this, I can say it now, I certainly couldn't say it then. If we sold 12 cars that month, I would have bankrupt. I would have been completely broke, bankrupt, bank would have taken over the place, and I'm gone. So I said to him, I said, well, I appreciate the effort, putting together this forecast, but we're going to sell 100 cars this month. They looked at me like I just told you that Earth is a different place. Well, we sold 88 cars that month. And I think what we need in Washington, D.C. is a reminder to everybody there that this country is capable of great things. Capable of great things. We can and that's a message to all of us. We cannot lose that spirit. Look, I'm going to be going Saturday to this group called the Green Dragon Society. It's a group of senators that are true constitutional conservatives. The Green Dragon Tavern, as you may know, is where the Americans plotted the American Revolution. Imagine what that conversation was like. I just talked to you about selling cars. Who cares? Imagine these guys. Now, I like to say this with my Boston accent because back then we know they didn't. But can you imagine? All right, here's what we're gonna do, guys. Okay? They're gonna park the boats on the harbor, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna go after these guys. Okay? Sick of these taxes. And you can imagine the other guys go, but that's the most powerful military on earth. Don't worry about it. Okay? And they won. They beat the most incredible, powerful military on earth through sheer willpower. Because the alternative for them was untenable. Just like the alternative for me was untenable. Just like the alternative for us right now is untenable. Because if we know, if we do not recapture the United States Senate, specifically the United States Senate, we're in trouble whether Biden gets reelected, which I obviously don't think is going to happen, and we're in trouble if we don't do it and President Trump's elected. Let me walk you through that. If Biden is reelected, they keep the Senate, checkmate. Checkmate, let me tell you, what we know to be America is gone.
Yes, sir.
Completely gone. Not the land will be here, but the concepts of America. What will they do? We don't have to guess. They tell us. D.C. and Puerto Rico will be states. They're going to pack the Supreme Court. They're going to nationalize elections. They'll put in place programs that will put most Americans under some form of government dependency. And we will never win another election in this country again. That's one. That's option one. The Senate will be the emergency brake in that scenario. Now, if President Trump wins, which, like I said earlier, will happen, will 100% happen. Let me just take it aside here. Let me just tell you, the second term of President Trump is going to be a glorious thing. Because he knows, it's like we're close to Christmas, he knows who's been naughty and nice, okay? He knows who the good guys are, he knows who the bad guys are. And we're going to get really great things done for this country. And that's why the left is scared out of their minds. But in that scenario, where President Trump is back in the White House, if we don't have the Senate, that's where all the cabinet appointments are made. Do you think that the Democrats are going to let him nominate one single human being to the cabinet? No. Completely shut that thing down. So the Senate is absolutely critical. Right? You got that? All right. Now, where do you fit in? Where do you fit in? Ohio. Ohio. I did an event at Mar-a-Lago on Thursday. We set a record for a fundraiser down there. Kimberly Guilfoyle was there. She was giving a speech, and she said, well, how do you get this crowd's attention? I said, OH! The people from Massachusetts are going, we should do that. M-A-S-S-U-C-A. It doesn't work. Anyway, Ohio is the deciding state in the United States Senate race. This is it. It's all Ohio. And by the way, Franklin County is the largest county in Ohio. The largest number of Republicans in Ohio. So Franklin County has to get the job done. Now, we are Republicans. We believe in having a competitive primary. But I'll tell you this. Every cent we spend between today and March 19th is a dollar that accrues to the benefit of Sherrod Brown. Just understand that. We are going to win this primary. The question is, do I win it having two guys nipping at my heels, driving out my negatives, making me spend money that I would rather spend beating up Sherrod Brown? Or are we going to unite as what I call, Meredith, don't take offense to this, the fully united, maybe somewhat dysfunctional family, okay? Because we need all of the Republicans to come together. Now, we don't agree on everything. We don't agree on everything, and that's okay. That's okay. but we agree on most things.
Yeah.
We certainly agree with things 70-75%. And with the Democrats, these are not the Democrats that we used to agree with maybe 20% of the time, 15% of the time. This is 0% of the time we agree with them on. So I know we have emotions, and I know that our instinct as Republicans is to fight with each other. But if we truly want to beat Sherrod Brown, it's going to require a united party.
Yes.
So yes, unity? All right. Now let me make a shameless plug. Shameless plug. There's been 9 counties that have endorsed in this race thus far. 6 in Southwest Ohio. 6 of those, one of my opponents didn't even bother to show up and ask for the endorsement. 2 in Central Ohio, he didn't bother to show up in one of them. We got Delaware County though. And we got 1 county up in Northeast Ohio. All 9 of those counties have endorsed me. All 9. 9 of those. We also got the endorsement from Strongsville Republican Club and from the Cuyahoga Valley Republicans. 2 clubs have endorsed. We got both.
Franklin's coming.
But Franklin's the key. Franklin's the key. Because this is where you drive up attendance. Right? Brown County's great. Great county. But that's a small precinct in Franklin County in terms of voters. What's that?
You got Clark County, buddy.
Clark County, that's right. Thank you. But we need Franklin. So there's going to be an endorsement meeting on February 6th. I don't know if I'm going to get in trouble for saying this, but the screening committee has recommended the county endorse me. But there's going to be a fight on the 6th to try to change that. Now, Franklin County endorsed Matt Dolan last cycle, not Senator J.D. Vance. Notice the terms. Matt Dolan, not Senator J.D. Vance. All right? The previous cycle, they also endorsed the person who did not win statewide.
Before my time.
Can we get Franklin County to endorse the winner of the statewide election? Can we get Franklin County to endorse me?
Bernie! 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 Bernie!
So if you know anybody who's on Central Committee, call them 5 times, 10 times, 20 times, right? Keep the line open until February 6th, right? Just don't let them take any other calls, all right? It's going to be tough, but here's the reality. People ask me, what do I hear around Ohio? Like, what's the temperature around Ohio? And what I hear over and over again is we don't need more career politicians in Washington, D.C. We're not going to fix this country with people who view solutions through the paternalistic lens of government. This idea that they, because they are in government, know better than you. Who knows better to run your life, the government or yourself? Do the politicians work for you, or do you work for the politicians? But we've gone astray on that, haven't we? Let's be honest. You know, I had a article that was written today in a Columbus Dispatch. Not so nice, as President Trump would say. But it said, it took a shot at me because I said 5 years ago, or 4 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever it was, that I never envisioned myself running for office. That's 100% true. I own that. I never would have imagined that I would run for office. But look at what happened March of 2020. Look at what happened March of 2020. Would you ever have believed it in your wildest nightmares?
No.
That we had a government that took a place like this and said, you got to close. By the way, not at 9:50, but at 10. Right? You can only have, you have to be 6 feet apart, not 5, not 4, not 7, 6. You don't have to wear a mask. Oh, you have to wear a mask. Oh, you have to wear 2 masks. Over and over again, rules after rules after rules that chip their way at the foundational mission of this country. One of my opponents talks about the preamble, or I should say the second paragraph of the Declaration of Independence. the part where Joe Biden called it the thing, by the way. I remember that, the thing. And most people end that paragraph, that section, by saying life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We all know that. We hear that over and over again. That's not the important part of that paragraph. The important part of that paragraph is what comes next, which it says, and listen carefully and put your mind back into March of 2020. It says, in order to secure these rights, governments are constituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Think about that for a second. How far away do we get from that? Right? Did you guys consent to closing businesses? No! Did you consent to being forced to take a vaccine or lose your job? No! How about bribing children to take a vaccine that we now know is harmful to children? No! Craziness. And how about the border? Let's talk about that, and we're going to turn it over to I know this is my ego. My ego says that all of you are here for me. All right? But I know the reality. All right, I'm the warm-up act. That's okay. But here's the thing. I want to talk about the border, and then we're going to wrap things up. Here's what I want you to understand about what's going on at the border. I had a question asked me today. Do you believe in immigration? And I said, well, I don't know. It would be a pretty awkward Zoom call from Colombia if I didn't, right? So I'm a big fan of legal immigration. Legal immigration. And Michelle talked about solutions. You look at what the Republicans just negotiated with the Democrats in D.C., out of their minds. Out of their minds. That border deal is a disaster. Basically, they're saying, hey, if a certain number of people break the law every year, it's okay. How many people should be allowed to break our laws? Zero. Exactly. So how do we fix it? And I want you to hear this clearly, because there is a very easy fix to the border. If you cross into our country illegally, meaning across the river, through a fence, whatever you do, immediately return, and you forfeit your right for asylum for life. Is that logical, by the way? Is that controversial? Is that hard? No, it's easy. Secondly, if you come through a legal method, we document who you are, we get you a hearing date, and then you wait in Mexico or Canada until your date is heard. We don't release you into the country. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And then that's number two. Number three, we finish the wall. Now, not because President Trump wants it, not because I want it, not because you want it. The Border Patrol agents, the people at the front line, they know the wall works. Let's listen to the people doing the job and finish the wall. Number four, we have to go to Mexico in a diplomatic way. We don't want to be like these neocons that want to start wars all over the world. We go to Mexico respectfully. We say, look, you're our largest legal trading partner, but you're also our largest illegal trading partner. Can't be both. If you want our help, we will give it. And we will help you wipe the drug cartels off the face of the earth. And they will make the right decision. And now, number five, and this is also critically important, and this is a flashpoint between myself and my opponents. If you are in this country illegally, you must be deported. Now, the media is going to find a story that is sympathetic, but at the end of the day, the reason we continue to have a problem at our border is because we're rewarding bad behavior. It's that simple. So any illegal immigrant, any illegal alien must be deported. No amnesty whatsoever. None. All right, so are we ready for Vivek? Is Vivek here?